My name is Samantha Brooks. I'm 29 years old, and just a few months ago, I did something I never thought I'd be able to do. I bought my first apartment. Not rented, not borrowed, bought in full. After 6 long years of relentless work, skipped vacations, second jobs, and a savings account that I guarded like a fortress, I finally stood in the center of a 2-bedroom apartment that was mine. Not too big, not too small, just right. That moment, the one where I held the keys in my hand and closed the front door behind me, wasn't just about real estate. It was about freedom. It was about the kind of peace that only comes when you know you've built something for yourself by yourself. The journey here wasn't glamorous. 2 years ago, I got promoted at my job in marketing, something I hadn't seen coming at all. My boss called me into his office, and for a split second, I thought I was getting fired. Instead, he offered me a new title, a higher salary, and a level of trust I had never received before. From that day forward, I lived like a monk. No vacations, no dinners out, no splurging. Every dollar I earned went straight into my savings, but it wasn't just my salary that made this possible. A year ago, my grandmother Margaret passed away. She was my mom's mother, the only consistent figure in my life for as long as I could remember. She left me $150,000 in her will. That money, combined with what I had saved on my own, was enough to make the dream happen. I didn't need a mortgage. The realtor looked stunned when I said I wanted to pay in full. She actually paused with the pen in her hand, blinking twice to make sure she heard me right. When I signed those papers, I felt like I was finally stepping into a life that belonged to me. The first thing I did after getting the keys was take 1,000 photos. The place still smelled like fresh paint and new carpet. I posted a few shots on social media, nothing flashy, just a dream come true caption, and my friends responded with so much love. "Living the dream," they said. "When's the housewarming? You deserve this." I smiled at every message. It felt good to have people who were genuinely happy for me. And then my phone rang. I saw the name on the screen and my stomach dropped. Dad! It had been a long time since I'd heard from him. Not because of any one fight, but because some silences in life are louder than arguments. "Hey, Samantha," he said. His voice was dry, like he was reading from a script. "Come over for lunch this Saturday. We need to talk." That's all he said. Just like that, the old weight returned. The kind that no amount of money or square footage could ever truly erase. When I was 9 years old, my mom died of cancer. She had been sick for a long time, but no amount of preparation can soften the loss of your mother. She was warmth, structure, laughter. And when she was gone, the silence left behind didn't just settle, it swallowed. My dad didn't stay single for long. Within a year, he married a woman named Linda, and shortly after that, they had a daughter, Emily. That was when I stopped existing in my own home. Linda wasn't outright cruel, not in the beginning, but there was something in the way she looked at me, like I was a reminder of a life she didn't want in her new home. She never said it directly, but her actions screamed it louder than words ever could. She brought new rules into the house, ones that seemed to apply only to me. "Samantha, keep your voice down. Samantha, no guests after 5. Samantha, don't leave your things in the living room." Meanwhile, Emily could blast cartoons on the TV, host sleepovers in the middle of the week, and leave her toys all over the kitchen counter without anyone saying a word. I was scolded for things she was praised for. Every time I spoke up, I was told I was being difficult. It was like I had become a ghost in my own childhood. And my dad changed too, or maybe he didn't change, maybe he just stopped pretending. He was completely absorbed in his new family. Where he once read me bedtime stories and helped with school projects, he now seemed too tired, too distracted, or too busy. The worst part was how Emily treated me. She was younger than me by 7 years, but she learned quickly how to push my buttons and how to make it look like I was the problem. She would hide my homework, accidentally spill juice on my clothes, and cry on cue whenever she got caught. Somehow, I was always the one who got blamed. "Stop upsetting your sister," Dad would say with a glare. "She's only a child," Linda would chime in, arms crossed like a judge waiting to deliver a sentence. Thank God for Grandma Margaret. She lived just 15 minutes away by bike. Her house became my escape, my refuge, my second home. Unlike my father's, her door was always open. She never made me feel like I was too much, too loud, or too needy. With her, I could just exist. Some weekends, my cousins Jake, Emma, and little Max would be there too. We'd build forts, play board games, and laugh until it hurt. There was no favoritism, no passive aggression, no tension. Just family, real family. The day I got my college acceptance letter should have been the happiest of my life, and in some ways it was. But not because my dad congratulated me. He didn't even ask where I got in. It was because it meant I could leave. Leave the house where I had tiptoed around for years. Leave the father who stopped looking me in the eyes. Leave the woman who smiled at me like I was a burden. College was 3 states away. Grandma helped cover what the scholarship didn't. When I hugged her goodbye that summer, she slipped a handwritten note into my bag. "Find the life you deserve," it said, "and never settle for less." I still have that note. College felt like breathing for the first time in years. For once, I wasn't walking on eggshells. I wasn't being compared to someone else, blamed for things I didn't do, or made to feel invisible in my own home. I had space, physical, emotional, mental. I had freedom. I threw myself into my classes, worked part-time at the campus bookstore, and called Grandma Margaret every Sunday. She never missed a call. She'd ask about my professors, my friends, even what I was eating. And at the end of every conversation, she'd say the same thing. "I'm proud of you, Sam. Don't let them make you forget who you are." I tried not to. I really did. After graduation, I got a job offer I couldn't turn down from a mid-sized marketing firm back in my home state. It wasn't ideal, going back to where everything had gone wrong. But the position was a stepping stone, and the pay was decent for a recent grad. I figured I could crash at my dad's place for a few weeks just until I got on my feet. I should have known better. When I called to ask, it was Linda who answered. "Oh, we gave your room to Emily," she said, not even pretending to sound apologetic. "She needs the extra space for her music equipment. You understand, right?" My dad didn't even get on the phone. He let her speak for him. Again. That moment, hearing those words, feeling that cold wall go up again, was a quiet confirmation of what I already knew. I was no longer welcome in that house. Maybe I never truly had been. I called Grandma, told her everything. She didn't ask questions. She just said, "Come home." And for a while I did. I stayed with her while I settled into my new job. Commuted from her house, helped her with groceries, watched old movies together on the couch. It was peaceful, comforting. It was the last time in my life I ever felt truly taken care of by someone who didn't want anything in return. A few months into my new job, I managed to find a small apartment close to the office. It wasn't much, just a studio with peeling paint and a stubborn heater, but it was mine. It was the first space I could call my own since I was a child. I worked hard, kept my head down, and slowly started to rebuild. And all the while, Grandma Margaret remained my anchor. We talked every week. She sent me home cooked meals when I was sick. She slipped gas money into my purse when I visited. She never once made me feel like a burden. Then, almost exactly a year ago, she passed away. It was sudden, a stroke in her sleep. One moment she was reminding me to eat breakfast, and the next, she was gone. The funeral was quiet, just family. I stood between my cousins Jake and Emma, holding their hands so tight my knuckles turned white. When her will was read a few weeks later, no one was surprised that she left her house to my aunt and cousins. They'd always lived nearby, and they'd helped take care of it in her later years. What did surprise people was what she left to me. A check for $150,000. For Samantha, the letter said, handwritten in her familiar cursive. "The granddaughter who reminds me most of her mother. Use this to build your future and never let anyone take it from you." I wept reading it, not for the money, but for the love behind it, the clarity, the knowing. With that money, combined with the savings I'd scraped together, I bought my dream apartment. A 2-bedroom with tall windows, hardwood floors, and sunlight that filled every corner. No loans, no co-signers, just me. It was more than an apartment. It was a line in the sand. This was mine, my life, my future. And no one, not even my family, was going to take it away from me. The Saturday after that phone call, I drove to my dad's house with a knot in my stomach. It had been years since I'd been there, really been there. The neighborhood looked the same. The lawn was perfectly trimmed. The curtains were drawn tight. Nothing ever changed in that house, except maybe how cold it felt. I rang the doorbell, already bracing myself. Dad answered. No smile, no hug, just come in. Inside, Linda sat perched in her favorite armchair, legs crossed, her posture stiff like royalty. Emily was slouched on the couch, scrolling on her phone, not even acknowledging me. "Sit," Dad said, gesturing to the lone chair across from them, like I was about to be interviewed. I sat. The air felt thick. "Amy has graduated high school," Dad began, as though I hadn't read it on Facebook. "She's enrolling in college nearby." I nodded once. "That's nice." There was a pause. Then came the real reason for this invitation. "She'll need a place to stay," he continued. "And your apartment, it's close to campus." I felt the shift before the words came. I leaned forward slightly, confused. "You mean as a roommate?" Dad shook his head. "No, we want you to give her the apartment." The silence was deafening. "Give her?" I repeated, sure I had misheard. "Yes," Linda chimed in. "You live there alone. That space is far too much for one person. Emily could use that stability while she studies." I looked at them both. They weren't joking. They actually believed this was a reasonable ask. I laughed short and sharp. "I worked for 6 years to afford that apartment. I bought it outright with my savings and Grandma's inheritance." Dad's voice dropped cold. "That money wasn't really yours, Samantha. Your grandmother gave it to you. You didn't earn it." Something inside me snapped. "She gave it to me," I said, my voice shaking, "because she knew no one else in this family ever would. She gave it to me because she actually saw me." Emily finally looked up, tears already welling in her eyes. "You're so mean," she whispered. "You've always hated me." I stood. My heart was pounding. "You all erased me the minute Mom died," I said. "And now you want to erase the one thing I've built for myself." "No." Dad stood too. "Then you're no longer in this family's will. No money, no name, nothing." I looked him in the eyes. "You already took my childhood. You don't get to take my future too." I turned and walked toward the door. Behind me, Emily sobbed louder and Linda muttered something about selfishness. I didn't care. Let them talk. Let them throw their tantrums. They weren't getting a single square inch of my home. Not now. Oh. Not ever. A week later, I hosted my housewarming party. The apartment came alive with warmth and laughter. My coworkers brought wine, my college friends showed up with snacks, and my cousins Jake, Emma, and Max filled the space with the kind of energy I'd always associated with family. Real family. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like I was performing. I wasn't shrinking myself to fit someone else's expectations. I wasn't waiting to be insulted or overlooked. I was home. Late into the evening, I was in the kitchen grabbing ice when Jake walked in. He was unusually quiet, serious even. "Hey," he said, pulling me aside. "I need to show you something." He handed me his phone. "I was at Lorenzo's last night with some friends. Look who I saw." My eyes landed on the photo, and my breath caught. Linda. Sitting in a dimly lit booth at the back of the restaurant. Her hand resting on the chest of a man I didn't recognize. They weren't just talking. They were laughing, touching, kissing. Jake swiped through a few more photos. Each one made my skin crawl. Her hand in his, him feeding her dessert, her head on his shoulder. "Who is he?" I asked, though part of me already knew. "Robert Mitchell," Jake said. "He's worked at the same insurance company as Linda for over 20 years. I checked. That name hit like a hammer to the chest. It sounded familiar because I'd heard Linda mention it growing up. A coworker. Someone she went on work trips with. Someone she was always texting when Dad wasn't home. I opened Facebook and typed in his name. His profile popped up instantly. Public photos. Dozens of them. Company retreats. Holiday parties. Casual lunches. And Linda always nearby. Sometimes in the background, sometimes right beside him. In some pictures they looked like any long-term couple would, relaxed, synchronized, intertwined. And then I saw it. A photo from 15 years ago. The caption read, "Perfect Sunday in the park." A woman sat beside Robert on a bench, wearing a red dress. Her face was turned, but I knew that dress. Linda still had it. I had seen her wear it the year she married my father. I stared at the image, bile rising in my throat. It wasn't just a fling. It wasn't recent. It had been going on for decades. I pulled up a recent photo of Emily on my phone and held it next to Robert's profile picture. The resemblance was undeniable. Same sharp nose, same tilt of the eyes, same faint dimple on the left cheek. Emily had never looked like my father. But now it all made sense. All the special treatment, All the overprotection, all the coldness toward me, the daughter who reminded them of a woman they wanted to forget. I sat there long after the guests left. The apartment that had felt so full just an hour ago now sat in heavy silence. I stared at Robert's face, then at Emily's. For 20 years, my dad had raised a child who probably wasn't even his. And the woman who had demanded I give up my apartment, she had built her entire life on a lie. The irony was almost poetic. But I didn't feel triumphant. I felt tired. Tired of the secrets. Tired of the games. Tired of being told I owed loyalty to people who never once offered me honesty. Still, I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't over. Not yet. The next morning, my phone rang again. Dad. I let it ring. Then it rang again, and again. Then came the text, "We need to talk. Come by the house today." I didn't respond right away. I needed time to think, time to plan. By now, I had no doubt Emily wasn't my father's biological daughter. But I also knew saying it out loud, especially without proof, would only make things worse. They'd call me bitter, jealous, delusional. And so, I stayed silent. For now. Now? When I finally agreed to visit later that week, I already knew what I was going to do. I packed a small Ziploc bag in my purse and reminded myself to breathe. They were waiting in the living room again, just like before. Linda sat prim and proper in her usual spot. Dad stood by the fireplace, arms crossed. His voice was sharp. "This selfishness of yours, it ends today," he said. "Either you sign the apartment over to your sister or I write you out of my will." Linda smirked like she'd already won. I put on my best mask of hesitation. I need to think about it," I whispered. Dad softened slightly. "Good, you take some time to remember what family means?" I nodded slowly. "Can I use the bathroom?" "Upstairs," he said, already turning away. I walked up, my heart pounding. But I didn't go into the bathroom. I went into Emily's room, my old room. Everything in it was pink and polished, like the perfect picture of the life I'd never been allowed to have. On her vanity was a hairbrush, thick with long, dark strands. With careful hands, I pulled out a few and sealed them in the bag. Then I slipped it into my coat pocket and flushed the toilet in the hall bathroom for good measure before heading back down. "Thanks," I said, smiling faintly as if nothing had happened. I walked out of that house knowing exactly what I needed to do next. If they wanted to play games with legacy and inheritance, fine. But I was done playing defense. I was ready to play smart. The DNA results came in 11 days later. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the envelope for a long time before opening it. Even though I already knew the answer, seeing it confirmed in black and white made it real. Robert Mitchell was a 99.97% parental match. Emily was not my father's biological daughter. I felt nothing at first. No joy. No anger, just stillness. Like the last piece of a puzzle finally snapped into place after years of fumbling in the dark. I thought about mailing the results straight to my father, maybe even leaving them in an unmarked envelope on his doorstep. But that would have been too easy, too impersonal. Instead, I printed a copy and slipped it into a simple white folder. Then I sat down and wrote a note. "You once asked what I had done to deserve my apartment. Now ask yourself what you've done to deserve my silence. This silence ends today." No threats, no insults, just the truth. The kind of truth that doesn't scream, it simply stands and watches everything unravel. I mailed it to their house the next morning, tracked delivery, signature required. And then I turned off my phone. I didn't need to hear the excuses, the crying, the yelling. I didn't need a final confrontation to validate what I already knew. Some people don't deserve closure. They deserve consequences. The days that followed were strangely calm. I went to work, made dinner, went for walks. The apartment felt different, lighter, somehow, like I had finally taken back something that had always been mine. One evening, Jake called. "They're spiraling," he said. "Your dad hasn't shown up for work in 2 days. Linda's Facebook is wiped clean. And Emily, she's not speaking to either of them." I said nothing. Just let the silence hang between us like a soft exhale. "Are you okay?" he finally asked. I smiled. "Yeah, I think I really am." A few weeks later, I changed my number. blocked their emails. There was nothing left to say. I kept the apartment, of course. I redecorated the guest room into an art studio and painted one wall with the words Grandma once wrote to me, "Find the life you deserve." And I did. Not out of vengeance, not out of spite, but because healing is also a kind of revenge. The kind that leaves no scars, only space to grow. When people ask me now if I still talk to my father, I just shake my head and say no. And if they ask why? Because sometimes silence is the loudest thing you can ever give to someone who once tried to take your voice. And I have no intention of whispering ever again. It's been almost a year since that chapter of my life finally closed. I still live in the same apartment, still walk past the same sunlit windows every morning. But it doesn't feel like just a place anymore. It feels like proof. Proof that I didn't need their approval to succeed. Proof that peace doesn't come from keeping the peace, it comes from choosing yourself. I've built something real here. My own routines, my own friends, my own joy. I host dinners in the fall, movie nights in the winter, and quiet mornings with coffee and a good book. There's laughter here. There's freedom. No one calls me selfish anymore. No one calls me at all, actually, and that's just fine. Some families are made of blood, others of love. I learned the difference the hard way, but I learned it. And every day, I live a little louder. A little bolder. A little more like the woman Grandma Margaret always believed I could become. If you're listening to this and you've ever been made to feel like you owed your life to people who didn't value you, know this. You don't. You are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to protect what you've built. You are allowed to begin again. Sometimes, the greatest revenge isn't destroying them, it's refusing to let them destroy you. Thank you for listening to my story. And if it touched something in you, if it reminded you of your own strength, your own worth, I hope you'll take a moment to like, share, or comment below. Your voice matters. And I hope, wherever you are, you never let anyone take it from you again.